This is Boxing Talk 8576 coming at you. I know I haven't been on here for a while. Has had a little, a little setback or something. But I feel a little bit better to do this video. It's been on my mind for a couple of days. But I know the old adage in boxing is you can't compare these boxers of today of yesterday to um, boxers of yesterday because the boxers of today says it's a different era. And I was thinking about that like it's a different era. But when it comes to accolades and comparing these fighters to yesterday fighters, it seems like the fighters and their fans want the accolades of comparing them. But when we say they have not fought fighters or as fought as much as fighters of yesterday, then they say it's a different era. See, they want the accolades of the fighters of yesterday, of yesteryear, but they don't want to do they don't want to be held to the standard that those guys had to go through and endure to become, an all-time great. A lot of, for example, when you compare Sugar Ray Robinson to Floyd Mayweather and say Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest because he had more fights, way more knockouts, and people say, well, Floyd is undefeated, and then we'll say, well, Sugar Ray Robinson fought often, like 3 times a week sometimes, and they'll say, well, this is a different time. Okay, oh, okay, it's a different time. And then when you look at Floyd Mayweather and he only fought like not even 50 fights, and then people say, well, it's a different era. People don't fight like they used to, but hey, he's still better than Sugar Ray Robinson or just as good as Sugar Ray Robinson. Because look at what he did, and then you got to you got to look at the fact that Sugar Ray Robinson, doubled him, tripled him in knockouts almost, and had way more fights, way more rounds. He fought 15 round fights. Um, he won welterweight titles, middleweight titles, almost won a light heavyweight title. And Mayweather, he has not yet as a welterweight unified all the titles. He hasn't held all the titles at once. Manny Pacquiao hasn't held all the titles at once. Tim Bradley hasn't held all the welterweight titles at once. But when you talk to these guys, fans, they want these fighters to be compared to the fighters and get the accolades the fighters of yesteryear have, but they don't want to endure and go through the struggle and the hell that the fighters of yesteryear went through as far as fighting, having 100 fights, 200 fights. You know what I'm saying? You have people like, you have Manny Pacquiao fans comparing him to Henry Armstrong, which he is doing some things that Henry Armstrong did, but you got to realize Henry Armstrong was the champion. It was no other belts out there. He was the man. When he won his titles, he was the man, the only guy that had the title. When Manny Pacquiao was doing it, other guys had belts. So Manny Pacquiao essentially was a belt holder moving up in weight. And you know what I'm saying? That's different than what Henry Armstrong did. Henry Armstrong did it on a bigger, greater scale, far as winning the titles and being the man. For order for Manny Pacquiao to be Henry Armstrong equal or try to be in the same conversation, he will have to have all the belts. He will have to go out there and win all the belts at 140, all the belts at 147, all the belts at 130, 135, and all the belts at 154 pounds. But he didn't do that. He was a belt holder in a lot of those weight classes. So you can't compare him. You can't give him Henry Armstrong accolades. I'm sorry, you just can't do that. You can say of this time he's doing something that Henry Armstrong did in his time, which Henry Armstrong did it at a time where you had to. It was no way you can pick on. Look, it was no way you can go to the IBF. I mean, the IBF side because it was the weaker of the WBC and WBA belt or the WBO. No, see, guys today can go and fight the lesser of the opponent with the belt, like what Adrian Broner did. He became a three-time world champion, but he fought Paul Malignaggi, the weakest welterweight at the time. Paul Malignaggi was the weakest belt holder. He didn't fight. He didn't go fight Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather. He went to go fight Paul Malignaggi because he knew he could pick on him and that'd be an easy chance for him to win. See, back in Henry Armstrong days, he would have had to fight the man at 147. Then to me, it would have been a greater feat if you would have went up there and fought the man at 147 or fought one of the stronger belt holders. But in order to get the same accolades that those guys got, you have to be the man. You have to have all the belts. You have to be the undisputed champion. You have to be the champion, the man. No one else can have a belt. Can be if it's a guy out there with the IBF belt and you got the WBA, WBO, WBC, you ain't the man because you got to go get that belt to be considered great like Sugar Ray Robinson or should be considered great as Henry Armstrong or those guys. You have to like Wilder right now. He's the WBC champion, but he's not the man. Neither it's Klitschko. Really, if you want to put it in a vacuum, Klitschko really ain't the man. You know what I'm saying? Klitschko have to go beat Wilder, or Wilder have to beat Klitschko to consider who's the man. See, that's why these fighters they get so sensitive when you say, well, you're not as great as that fighter, and then they say, well, the times are different. People don't fight as much as they did back then as they do now. Okay, well, but you want the same accolades that they got back then. You still want to be considered a three-time world champion, even though you didn't have all the belts. Even though you only have one, you was a belt holder essentially. Essentially, you really if there's a lot of belts out there, we don't even know who the contender is and who the champion is because three out of the four belt holders, maybe all of y'all contenders, and nobody's the champion. Nobody's the champion. Everybody contenders, and you got contenders ducking contenders. You don't have champions really ducking champions. You have contenders ducking contenders because if all of y'all don't fight, they have belts. We don't even know who the man is. Then we have to go through leaps and bounds and figure out, oh, that's the man. No, I think he's the man. No, and then the fan can say, oh, I think he's the man. See, if we had all the belts unified, if somebody unified the titles, you can't say your favorite fighter is the man when he don't have a belt. He's not the man. The guy that has all the belts is the man. See, that's why I hold greater respect for the guys back in the day, the black and white era too. The black and white era mostly, and then coming up through the 70s and the 80s, because those guys unified belts. Those guys unified belts, man, and you have to unify the title. You know what I'm saying? You have to have a Sugar Ray Leonard fight Thomas Hearns to unify the title to be the man. You know what I'm saying? You just have to do it. You can't go down in history and say I was a belt holder, so I'm a 20-time world champion. No, it don't work like that. The fighters of yesteryear are the standard, and the fighters of today have to meet the standards to get the full accolades. You can't get no accolades off of being a belt holder. It's just not going to fly. It's not going to happen. This is Boxing Talk 8576. I'm out.